let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to uncover the hidden chemistry of everyday life by decoding a really fascinating and honestly highly misunderstood class of molecules, lipids. You know, usually when we hear that word, we just think of fat as something we're supposed to avoid. But today, we're completely rewriting that narrative. To get us started, I want you to think about this question. What do a greasy bag of potato chips, a fresh bar of soap sitting in your shower, and the complex neural pathways in your brain all have in common? I know, it sounds like the setup to a really weird joke, right? But the surprising answer actually connects the snacks we eat, our daily hygiene routines, and literally our very capacity to think. The answer is lipids. And hey, instead of thinking of them as some intimidating scientific term, just think of lipids as a wildly diverse family of biochemicals. They are soluble in organic solvents, but they're united by one primary, defining characteristic: their absolute hatred of water. They just don't mix. And if you trace this family tree, it reveals an incredible, dynamic universe of molecules. We aren't just talking about the fat on a steak here. The lipid family branches out from the simple waxes that coat plant leaves all the way down to incredibly complex steroids made up of fused cyclical rings. It's a whole dynamic universe of chemical structures. So to truly understand this family, we really have to start at the absolute structural foundation, which is fatty acids. Think of these long-chain carboxylic acids as the fundamental building blocks forming the everyday fats and oils we bump into all the time. In nature, they usually feature an even number of carbon atoms, but their real secret, the thing that literally dictates how they behave in our world, lies entirely in their physical shape. It's a brilliant example of how shape dictates function. Take a saturated fatty acid, for example. It features all single bonds, making the chains straight and rigid. Because they're straight, they stack incredibly tightly together. But then you have unsaturated fatty acids. These contain double bonds, which causes a dramatic physical bend or kink in the chain, and that bend completely prevents them from stacking neatly together. Let's actually anchor this molecular concept right in your own kitchen. Because saturated fats have those straight chains that stack perfectly tightly together, they are totally solid at room temperature and have a higher melting point. Just picture a stick of butter holding its rigid shape right there on your counter. Oils, on the other hand, are packed with those bent, unsaturated chains. Because they can't stack together, they stay fluid. That is exactly why olive oil pours so smoothly right out of the bottle. But what if food scientists want to kind of bend the rules of nature? Well, they do this through a process you've probably seen a million times on nutrition labels: hydrogenation. By actively adding hydrogen gas to an unsaturated oil, they literally force those bent double bonds to convert into straight single bonds. It's like a real-world magic trick. A liquid oil physically transforms into a soft, spreadable, semi-solid fat. If you've ever put margarine on your toast, you've eaten the result of this exact process. Of course, this very same chemistry also explains why things go bad in your pantry. The villain here is oxidation. When oxygen interacts with these oils, it converts them into carboxylic acids, which is the literal chemical definition of fat going rancid. It produces that incredibly sour, old gym sock odor. Yuck, right? This is exactly why we rely on airtight containers and refrigeration. And here's a crazy fun fact for you. Even microorganisms on your skin use this exact oxidation process on your body oils when you sweat. Okay, now watch what happens when we break these structures down. If we trigger a chemical breakdown called hydrolysis, either by introducing a strong acid catalyst or an enzyme called lipase, the fat molecule splits apart. This process produces glycerol, and crucially, it yields the salts of the fatty acids. So, what exactly do we do with these resulting salts? Well, we wash our hands with them. It turns out, ordinary soap is actually just a modified lipid. That totally normal bar of soap sitting by your bathroom sink, it is a long-chain fatty acid salt, a direct, everyday result of the lipid chemistry we've just been talking about. The really cool part is how this molecular structure acts as a microscopic cleaning machine. You see, a soap molecule has a dual nature: a polar head containing sodium that is highly water-soluble, and a long, non-polar tail that is fat-soluble. So when you wash your hands, those non-polar tails actively seek out and grab onto the oily, fatty dirt on your skin. Meanwhile, the polar heads bond with the flowing water from your faucet. The result? The water drags the fat, the dirt, and the soap right down the drain. All right, let's shift away from the kitchen and the bathroom sink and peer directly into the human body. We heavily rely on essential fatty acids. These are specific polyunsaturated fats, like linoleic and linolenic acids. But there is a major catch here. Our bodies simply cannot manufacture them. We absolutely have to absorb them from our diets, and it's vital that we do. For instance, infants lacking these specific fatty acids can actually develop severe skin dermatitis. Within this biological landscape, one incredibly important player is arachidonic acid. Think of arachidonic acid as a specific biological trigger point. It is the exact chemical starting line for a massive, immediate cascade of reactions inside our bodies whenever any sort of physical trauma occurs. Just imagine a hammer violently hitting a thumb. Ouch, right? The very millisecond that tissue injury occurs, arachidonic acid is rapidly converted into molecules called prostaglandins. Think of these as localized chemical messengers. They travel immediately to receptors and basically scream a signal of pain, fever, and inflammation directly to your brain, making your thumb throb and swell. Which brings us to a massive aha moment. How do common painkillers, analgesics like aspirin or ibuprofen, actually work? Well, they don't magically heal the injured thumb. What they do is literally sever that chemical chain reaction, preventing the arachidonic acid from converting in the first place. If those prostaglandins are never created, the chemical message of pain simply never arrives at the brain. It is chemical interception at its absolute finest. Okay, let's zoom out to the macrobiological level now and look at something called phospholipids. These are complex lipids where glycerol joins with fatty acids, a phosphate, and an amino alcohol. Now remember how we said lipids hate water? Because of that fascinating little trait, these molecules spontaneously arrange themselves into a protective bilayer in aqueous environments. They literally form the structural walls and boundaries of every single living cell in your entire body. And these complex classes prove that lipids are way, way more than just energy storage. Take glycerophospholipids. They absolutely pack your brain and nerve tissue. Then you've got sphingolipids, which form the protective insulation wrapped around your nerve fibers. Glycolipids function as crucial identity markers so your cells can recognize each other. And steroids, with their unique fused ring structures, give core strength to your cell membranes and help produce vitamin D. This isn't just fat, you guys. This is literally the structural hardware of you. Because these lipid structures are so deeply fundamental to human life, the biological stakes are incredibly high. And this leads us to lipid storage diseases. These occur when the body's biological machinery breaks down. If a specific enzyme required to break down complex glycolipids is absent, mismade, or deficient, the lipids accumulate improperly. This causes severe, systemic failures across the entire body, showcasing just how perfectly, delicately balanced this chemistry needs to be to keep us alive. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a thought. The next time you wash dirt off your hands, or swallow an aspirin to block a headache, or heck, even use your insulated nerve fibers to simply think a thought, will you ever look at fat the same way again? These invisible, shape-shifting structures are the hidden marvels making your entire daily life possible. Thanks for exploring this with me, and keep questioning the incredible world around you.